Have you ever had a gut feeling that turned out to be spot on? Or one that led you astray? Maybe it told you not to trust someone, or nudged you to take a different route home. These moments seem magical, sudden, emotional, and hard to explain. But what if they weren't magic at all? What if your intuition was rooted in science, in biology, memory, emotion, and the remarkable connection between your gut and your brain? Welcome to Science Beyond Sleep, a quiet space where we explore the hidden science behind the feelings, thoughts, and experiences that shape our inner lives. If you're new here, I'm glad you found this channel. And if you've joined me before, welcome back. Each week, we drift into a topic that invites wonder, curiosity, and a bit of rest. Tonight, we'll dive into the fascinating relationship between your intuition and your body. We'll explore how your gut and brain communicate, how snap judgments form in milliseconds, and how instinct might be wiser than we think, but also more fragile than it seems. So take a deep breath. Let your thoughts soften, and let's begin our journey into the secret science of your gut and the power of intuition. Chapter 1. The Gut Feeling. What is intuition really? Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly. Now think about a moment in your life, a moment when you just knew something before you had any evidence. You couldn't explain it. It was just a feeling, a quiet tug, a soft warning, or an unexpected green light from within. This is what we often call intuition, or, more informally, a gut feeling. But what exactly is that feeling? Is it magic? Is it the universe whispering to us? Or is it something more grounded, something biological, deeply human, and perhaps measurable? Let's begin by understanding the mystery itself. Intuition is often described as knowing something without knowing how you know it. It arrives without logic, without reasoning. It doesn't come from a flowchart or a debate. It just shows up. You feel something in your stomach or in your chest, maybe in your breathing or in the tightness of your throat. It's quick, emotional, often uninvited, and strangely, sometimes it's right, even when all signs point the other way. For centuries, people have romanticized this inner voice. Artists, inventors, and explorers speak of trusting their gut, of just knowing when something felt right. In ancient cultures, the heart or gut was often seen as the seat of wisdom, not the brain. And even today, phrases like follow your heart or go with your gut are deeply embedded in how we make decisions, especially when time is short or emotions are high. But what if intuition isn't some mystical power? What if it's the brain working behind the scenes, making lightning-fast judgments based on everything we've ever seen, felt, or learned? In scientific terms, intuition is often defined as the ability to understand or decide something quickly without conscious reasoning. That doesn't mean it's irrational. It just means it's happening faster than our conscious thoughts can catch up. Imagine it like an iceberg. The small part you see above water is your conscious mind, but below the surface, vast layers of memory, emotion, experience, and pattern recognition are working quietly, continuously. Let's say you meet someone new and instantly feel a sense of discomfort. They haven't said anything wrong. They haven't done anything suspicious. But your gut clenches just a bit. Something's off. That's not paranoia. That's your brain drawing on subtle patterns, facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, even smells or pacing, and comparing them to countless past experiences. Your conscious mind might be confused, but your intuition is already alert. In fact, studies have shown that the brain can process emotional cues from faces in just milliseconds, long before you've consciously decided how you feel about someone. This rapid processing is done by areas like the amygdala, which evaluates emotional significance before the slower, rational brain steps. So intuition might just be speed, an efficient, fast-track route through the maze of decision-making. But where does the gut come in? Interestingly, it's not just metaphorical. Science shows that the gut, your literal digestive system, plays a real role in how you think and feel. Your gut is lined with over 100 million neurons, sometimes called the second brain. This system, known as the enteric nervous system, is in constant communication with the brain via the vagus nerve, a long, wandering pathway that carries emotional and physical signals in both directions. When you're anxious, you feel it in your stomach. When you're excited, you might feel butterflies. When something feels wrong, your gut might churn or tighten. These are not just coincidences. They're messages. And over time, your brain learns to interpret them, not as random reactions, but as guidance. So when we say gut feeling, we're not being poetic. We're being accurate. Some scientists believe that what we call intuition is multisensory. It blends subtle signals from the body, heartbeat, breathing, gut tension, with rapid unconscious cognition. Your body senses something before your conscious mind does. And your intuition acts like a bridge, connecting those signals to your awareness just enough for you to feel that inner nudge. But intuition isn't always right. Sometimes our past experiences bias us. Sometimes emotions cloud perception. Sometimes we react to fear or desire, not wisdom. And we'll explore that soon. For now, just know this. Your intuition is real. It's a process, not a superpower. And it begins with a feeling that's older than language, older than logic, older than even your memories. It's a whisper from your body, a hunch from your brain, and a signal from your nervous system, all working together in ways you barely notice. Tonight, as we continue our quiet exploration, we'll drift deeper into the workings of intuition, not just where it begins, but how quickly it unfolds. Let's move into the next quiet moment and explore how fast a thought really is. Have you ever made a decision so quickly that it surprised even you? Maybe you slammed the brakes just in time, or said yes to something before your brain could explain why. That moment, that split-second knowing, is where this chapter begins. That we often think of thought as slow, deliberate, logical, but not all thought works that way. Some of our most important decisions happen in a flash, before words, before analysis. And science is beginning to understand how fast and how far this gut wisdom can go. To the core of it all is speed. Your brain processes information at lightning pace, up to 268 miles per hour along myelinated neurons. A signal from your eye can travel to your visual cortex in less than a tenth of a second. Your spinal cord reacts to touch in milliseconds. Even before you think you've made a choice, your brain may have already acted. This is the realm of intuitive thought, what psychologists call System 1 thinking. Coined by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, System 1 is fast, automatic, and effortless. It relies on heuristics, mental shortcuts built from past experience. And most of the time, it works beautifully. It's why you can read facial expressions, catch a ball, or sense danger almost instantly. System 1 doesn't ask you to reason. It recognizes. It reacts. It remembers patterns without needing to explain them. Contrast that with System 2, slow, deliberate, logical reasoning. System 2 is what you use to solve math problems, plan a trip, or write a pros and cons list. It's powerful, but also exhausting. That's why your brain prefers to lean on intuition whenever it cannot hear something even more fascinating. Researchers using brain imaging have discovered that your brain often predicts what's about to happen before you consciously notice it. In one study, participants were shown a series of images while their skin conductance, a measure of arousal, was recorded. Strangely, their bodies responded to disturbing images before the image was shown, as if their nervous systems could feel the future, or at least anticipate it, based on subtle cues. That's the predictive brain at work. Your mind is not a camera, passively recording events. It's more like a forecasting machine, constantly scanning, guessing, updating. It builds models of the world and uses those models to keep you safe and efficient. This is why intuition can be so powerful and also so flawed. If the model is wrong, the reaction will be too. But when the model is accurate, built on years of rich experience, your gut can be astonishingly precise. Now let's add another layer. The body. Intuition doesn't just live in your brain. It lives in your muscles, your organs, your heartbeat. It's a full body system, a symphony of subtle signals. When you get a gut feeling, your brainstem may already be triggering hormonal shifts. Your heart rate changes. Your stomach tightens. Your facial muscles may even shift before your conscious mind can say a word. These micro changes form a kind of biological radar. They're how your body communicates urgency, danger, or calm without needing language. And in high-stakes environments, like emergency rooms, flight decks, or battlefield scenarios, people often rely on these bodily signals to make life or death calls. Veteran nurses, for instance, can often sense when a patient is about to crash long before machines catch it. Not because of magic, but because their brains and bodies have learned what subtle cues matter. So, how fast is a thought? Faster than language, faster than reason, fast enough to keep you alive or steer you wrong, depending on what you've learned. This chapter reminds us that intuition is not just emotional, it's neurological. It's the product of billions of neurons firing, muscles responding, organs adjusting, all in harmony. That it's an elegant dance between data and feeling, past and present, instinct and experience. And the better you understand it, the more aware you become of how fast your thoughts arise, the more wisely you can use them. Now, with that foundation of speed and instinct in place, let's descend even deeper. Let's look at the gut itself, not metaphorically, but physically. Because what if I told you your gut is a brain of its own, ready to meet your second brain? Let's explore. Imagine for a moment that deep inside your belly lives another brain. Not a poetic metaphor, a real one, with neurons, with neurotransmitters, with circuits that remember, respond, and even think in their own quiet way. This isn't science fiction. It's called the enteric nervous system, a vast network of over 100 million neurons embedded in the walls of your digestive tract. That's more than in your spinal cord. That it's often called the second brain. And though it doesn't write poetry or do math, it plays a critical role in your emotional life and your intuition. The enteric nervous system, ENS, is responsible for controlling digestion, sure, but it's also a highly independent system. It can function without direct orders from the brain. It makes decisions, regulates hormones, and responds to the environment in real time. For years, scientists assumed the gut was just a passive organ, like plumbing. Now, they know it's more like a biological intelligence center, working 24/7 to interpret what's happening inside and around you. What's fascinating is that the ENS communicates with your central nervous system, especially the brain, through a superhighway of nerves, the most important of which is the vagus nerve. We'll explore that connection more in the next chapter. But for now, focus on this. When you feel butterflies, tightness, nausea, or warmth in your stomach, it's not just a response to what's happening in your brain. It might be your gut sending signals to your brain, and the gut doesn't speak in words. It speaks in sensations. It nudges you gently, tightens when you're uncomfortable, soothes when you're safe. There's growing evidence that this second brain remembers, not in the way your cerebral cortex does, but through sensory memory. That means certain foods, smells, or stressors might trigger emotional reactions before your conscious mind even understands why. Some researchers believe the ENS plays a role in conditions like anxiety, depression, and even PTSD. If the gut is in distress, your emotional life often follows. And if your gut is calm, your mind often is too. The ENS is also deeply involved in what's called interoception, your brain's awareness of the internal state of the body. Think of it like your internal weather system. Is the pressure rising? Are you tense, relaxed, uneasy? This subtle information constantly flows between your gut and your brain, helping shape your sense of self, your emotional landscape, and yes, your intuition. You may have heard the phrase, "I just knew it in my gut." Science suggests that's more than a figure of speech. It's a lived experience, one backed by biology. Point one fascinating discovery. Over 90% of serotonin, a neurotransmitter often linked to happiness and emotional balance, is produced in the gut, not the brain. That alone tells us how deeply connected our emotional states are to our digestive system. And it makes sense. The gut is the first part of you that interacts with the world through nourishment, through instinct, through need. It evolved to protect, respond, and signal. Now, some scientists are even exploring whether the ENS might one day help explain intuitive leaps, those sudden flashes of insight that seem to come from nowhere. Perhaps they're not from nowhere at all. Perhaps they're from deep inside, from a system that's been quietly paying attention all along. So what does this mean for you? It means listening to your gut isn't just a saying. It's a practice. It means paying attention to subtle cues, the tension in your stomach, the pace of your breath, the way your body reacts in certain moments. It means realizing that the body often knows before the mind catches up. The more we learn about the enteric nervous system, the more we realize you don't just think with your head. You feel, sense, and respond with your entire being. The second brain is not a backup system. It's a partner in perception, a whispering voice that speaks in pressure, in calm, in rhythm. And when we learn to hear it, really hear it, our decisions become not just smarter, but wiser. So now that we've uncovered the gut's inner intelligence, let's trace the line that connects it directly to your mind. Not metaphorically, but through actual, physical wires. Let's move next into the brain-gut connection and meet the vagus nerve, the gentle messenger that links your two minds. Picture two minds, one in your head, the other in your belly, connected by a single, long thread. That thread is real. It's not imaginary. It's called the vagus nerve, running from the base of your brain down through your neck, chest, and into your abdomen. The vagus nerve is the superhighway of communication between your central nervous system and your enteric nervous system, your second brain. And in many ways, it's the foundation of how your body and mind stay in sync. Let's start with something remarkable. Around 80% of the vagus nerve signals go from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. This means your gut is not just a receiver of information, it's a sender, a storyteller. It reports constantly on your internal environment, influencing your mood, decisions, and even your sense of self. This constant stream of information isn't in words. It's in signals, chemicals, pulses of tension or calm. The brain listens. It interprets. It reacts. If you've ever had a gut reaction to someone before they spoke, maybe you felt uneasy or completely at ease, that may have been your vagus nerve at work. It's sensing, relaying, adjusting, faster than your conscious thoughts can form. But how does this actually affect your day-to-day life? Let's say you walk into a room filled with stress. Maybe it's loud, chaotic, disorganized. Even before your eyes take in the full scene, your gut might tighten. The vagus nerve picks up subtle shifts in your body, breathing rate, blood pressure, the tension in your core, and sends those signals to your brain. Your brain interprets this input and primes you for alertness, even anxiety. Now flip the scene. You sit outside on a quiet evening. The breeze is cool, your breathing slows, your body relaxes. Your vagus nerve carries those calm signals upward, and your brain follows suit. You feel safe, grounded, peaceful. Your thoughts become clearer. Your intuition becomes more trustworthy. This is the vagal tone, a term scientists use to describe how well your vagus nerve regulates emotional and physiological balance. The higher your vagal tone, the more resilient you are to stress, and the better you are at tuning into your body's internal cues. But what does that mean for intuition? When your vagus nerve is healthy and active, you're more connected, not just emotionally, but biologically, to your inner world. You become more attuned to subtle shifts. Your gut feelings become easier to sense, and you can better distinguish real warnings from passing anxiety. That it's not magic. It's biology. The better your brain and gut communicate, the more accurate and helpful your intuitive sense becomes. There's even research suggesting that people with stronger vagal tone show greater emotional intelligence, better memory, and quicker recovery from stress. So how can you support this connection? Simple practices can help. Deep breathing, especially long exhales, stimulates the vagus nerve. Mindfulness meditation and gentle movement like yoga or Tai Chi enhance vagal tone. Cold exposure, like a splash of cold water on the face or a cool shower, can activate the nerve as well. And of course, taking care of your gut health through diet, hydration, and rest strengthens this connection from the inside out. Some scientists now believe the brain and gut co-evolved as a single system, two sides of the same intelligent network, not separate, but deeply integrated. One interprets the world, the other reacts to it. Together, they form your internal compass. And that compass is where intuition begins. So the next time you feel something, a hunch, a hesitation, a quiet yes, pay attention. That signal may have traveled a long way, quietly and faithfully, from your gut to your brain, via the vagus nerve, a gentle messenger connecting your two minds. And now, as we've followed the signals between your gut and brain, it's time to meet the billions of microscopic life forms living inside your gut that also shape how you think and feel. Let's move next into one of the most fascinating aspects of the video, the role of the microbiome in mood and thinking. Imagine, deep within you, there exists an invisible world, teeming with life, pulsing with activity, whispering to your brain without ever making a sound. This isn't science fiction. It's your gut, and the tiny inhabitants that call it home. The trillions of microbes that make up your microbiome are not just passengers. They're co-authors of your thoughts, your moods, and perhaps even your intuition. The gut microbiome is made up of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microorganisms. Altogether, they outnumber your own human cells. In terms of genetic material, they're vastly more complex than you are. But what makes them so astonishing isn't just their quantity. It's their quiet influence over your mind. For decades, scientists believed the brain was the sole commander of your thoughts and feelings. But the latest discoveries tell a different story. Your gut, and the microbes within it, are deeply involved in how you feel, think, and respond to the world. That it begins with chemistry. Many of the same neurotransmitters responsible for regulating mood in the brain, like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, are also produced in the gut. In fact, about 90% of the body's serotonin is made in the digestive system. This changes everything we thought we knew about emotion. What if your sadness isn't just in your head? What if your sense of calm, your clarity, your confidence are actually beginning in your belly? Through a complex network often referred to as the gut-brain axis, these microbes communicate with your central nervous system. The vagus nerve is a key messenger in this dialogue, delivering signals from the gut straight to the brain. These signals aren't thoughts exactly. They're more primal than that. Chemical nudges, metabolic whispers that influence whether you feel anxious or at ease, foggy or focused, energized or drained. But the relationship isn't static. When your microbiome is healthy and diverse, your gut can become a source of resilience, helping you manage stress and think more clearly. When it's out of balance, due to poor diet, illness, or stress itself, it can send distorted signals, contributing to anxiety, depression, and even impairing memory. Studies on animals and humans alike have shown that disruptions in the microbiome can change behavior. Mice with altered gut bacteria exhibit signs of fear and antisocial tendencies. When those bacteria are restored, their behavior improves. It's as if their instincts are being rewritten from the inside. But what's even more fascinating is how personal this ecosystem is. Your microbiome is shaped by everything: how you were born, what you ate as a child, the environments you've lived in, the stress you've endured. No two are exactly alike, and that means no two minds are, either. Your gut is part of your biography, and it doesn't just digest your food, it digests your experiences. Emerging research suggests that people with a rich, diverse microbiome tend to perform better on tests of emotional intelligence and stress recovery. They bounce back faster from setbacks. They show more sensitivity to social cues. Their gut feelings aren't magical. They're finely tuned systems built from years of microbial interaction and brain development. So, when you get a feeling about something, an unease around a person, or a sudden sense of comfort in a place, it may come from this inner world you rarely notice. Your microbes are picking up on environmental shifts, sending signals to your brain, shaping your perception before you're even aware it's happening. This flips our understanding of intuition on its head. It's not just a fleeting instinct. It may be the echo of ancient biological processes, a symphony conducted in your gut and interpreted by your mind. Your intuition could be the distilled wisdom of 1 trillion microorganisms trying to keep you balanced and safe. And while this research is still unfolding, one thing is becoming clear: your microbiome isn't background noise. It's a voice, a quiet guide that shapes the way you relate to yourself and the world. The gut isn't just a place of digestion. It's a seat of feeling, a sensory organ tuned to internal and external change. Caring for your gut, then, isn't just about physical health. It's a way of nurturing your emotional clarity and mental calm, a way of giving your instincts a clearer channel to speak through. And perhaps, in this age of constant external noise, that kind of inner clarity is the most valuable thing of all. So, as we begin to grasp the microbiome's influence on mood and intuition, we now shift our focus back to the brain itself. Not the conscious mind, but the part that works in the background, building patterns, recognizing signals, predicting outcomes. The part that makes snap judgments before we're even aware we've made them. Let's now explore how the brain builds patterns and how those patterns shape what we call intuition. Patterns are the invisible scaffolding of our lives. Without them, we would drown in chaos. Every sound we hear, every shape we see, every word we read, our brain immediately begins searching for structure. It groups, filters, matches, and predicts. This is how we make sense of the world. This is how we survive. But it's also how we develop what we call gut feelings. Because beneath the surface of awareness, your brain is constantly recognizing familiar patterns and comparing them to your past experiences. You don't think, you feel. And that feeling is built on a lifetime of subtle repetition. From the moment we're born, our brains begin mapping the world. A baby doesn't need to understand language to recognize a tone of voice. A child doesn't need a physics lesson to know when something feels unstable. These are patterns picked up through experience, processed not consciously, but instinctively. Our neurons are constantly firing, wiring themselves into loops that recognize, respond, and remember. The more often we encounter a pattern, the stronger that circuit becomes. This is the biological basis of intuition. Not magic, not mystery, just well-trained neural pathways operating in milliseconds. Think about walking into a new room. Within seconds, before you've thought about it, you've scanned the space, judged its mood, identified the people inside, and predicted how safe or tense it feels. You don't actively do this. Your brain does it for you, referencing thousands of past experiences. The smell in the air might remind you of a childhood memory. The angle of someone's posture might match something you once saw in a threatening moment. You feel something, warmth or discomfort, curiosity or caution, and only later might you rationalize it. That's pattern recognition at work. Quiet, fast, deeply embedded. This unconscious pattern matching is often called the brain's predictive coding system. Instead of passively receiving information, the brain constantly predicts what's about to happen. Every second, it compares its predictions with reality, adjusting its model when necessary. When things align, we feel confident, even relaxed. When things break the pattern, we feel alert or anxious. This is where intuition often spikes. A bad feeling might simply be the brain flagging something unfamiliar, something that doesn't fit the expected model. It's like a silent alarm system built on millions of observations. And here's where it gets really fascinating. The more varied and emotionally rich your life experiences are, the more sophisticated your pattern recognition becomes. Someone who's traveled widely, worked in different environments, read diverse literature, or spent time deeply observing human behavior will have a more nuanced gut instinct. Their brain has more reference points, more textures to compare, more stories to recall, which means their intuition isn't just fast. It's often incredibly accurate, but it's not always correct. Sometimes, the patterns we've absorbed are flawed. Maybe they're shaped by fear, or prejudice, or trauma. If your brain has learned to associate certain cues with danger based on a painful event, it might trigger that pattern inappropriately. This is how intuition can mislead us. Not because it's faulty, but because it's trained on limited or biased data. It's important to remember, the brain isn't logical by default. It's efficient. It does what works fastest, not necessarily what's most accurate. This is why reflection matters. The more we examine our patterns, question our assumptions, the more flexible our intuition becomes. It's like refining a musical instrument. A poorly tuned guitar still plays, but it doesn't sound right. Our brains are the same. Left unchecked, they play the same tune over and over. But when we listen closely, when we practice mindfulness, when we expose ourselves to new experiences, we expand the range. We give our intuition a deeper well to draw from. Another powerful example of pattern building can be found in artists, athletes, and emergency responders. These people often describe entering a flow state, where decisions happen faster than thought. A jazz musician improvises without planning. A firefighter senses the collapse of a building moments before it happens. A soccer player knows where the ball will go before it's kicked. These moments are not random. They're rooted in years of practice, repetition, and pattern recognition, so ingrained it becomes automatic. This is expertise meeting intuition, a dance between the trained mind and the spontaneous now. In many ways, this chapter is a turning point in our journey. We've moved from the biology of the gut to the architecture of the brain. And what we're learning is that the two aren't separate at all. Your gut can influence what patterns your brain is even able to see. And your brain can shape how your gut responds to the world. It's a feedback loop, each informing the other, each adding complexity to the other's signals. Next time you get that feeling, that flicker of knowing without knowing, pause for a moment. Don't dismiss it, but don't obey it blindly. Either, ask yourself, where is this coming from? What pattern is my brain recognizing? Is this the voice of experience or the echo of fear? That small moment of curiosity can make all the difference between acting from wisdom and reacting from habit. As we continue deeper into the science of intuition, it's important to understand not just how these patterns help us, but how they sometimes lead us astray. Because intuition, for all its beauty, is not perfect. Sometimes it gets things wrong. And in the next part of our journey, that's exactly what we'll explore. Let's look at what happens when intuition misfires and why the most powerful instincts can sometimes be the most deceptive. We've spent time honoring the brilliance of intuition, how it helps us move quickly, sense danger, recognize opportunity, and navigate the world with grace and efficiency. But now, let's slow down and look at its shadow. Because while intuition is powerful, it is not flawless. And when it fails, it often does so quietly, leaving us to deal with the consequences. Sometimes, we're so convinced our gut was right that we don't even realize how wrong it was until much later. You see, intuition is only as good as the patterns it's built upon. And those patterns, as we explored before, come from our experiences, real or perceived. But what happens when those experiences were shaped by fear, by misinformation, by limited exposure to the world? The brain doesn't discriminate between truth and impression. It just learns. It absorbs. It catalogs. If you grew up being told that certain people can't be trusted, or if you had a single painful experience that left a deep mark, your intuition may start firing in ways that feel accurate, but aren't. This is where cognitive biases begin to shape what we think of as gut feeling. These biases are like shortcuts your brain takes to reach a conclusion faster, but they often ignore facts or wider context. One classic example is the confirmation bias, where we tend to favor information that supports what we already believe and dismiss what doesn't. If your gut tells you someone seems untrustworthy and you're not aware of your biases, you might only notice the things they do that confirm that belief. Everything else gets filtered out. Or consider the availability heuristic, a bias where we judge how likely something is based on how easily it comes to mind. If you've recently seen a news story about a plane crash, your gut might say, don't fly, even though flying is statistically far safer than driving. That bad feeling isn't coming from a logical place. It's coming from a vivid memory. The more emotionally charged an event, the more heavily it weighs in our subconscious decision-making, skewing our perception, another form of misleading. Intuition is what psychologists call the effect heuristic, when we base decisions not on logic, but on how we feel about something. It's the classic "this feels wrong, so it must be wrong" moment. But feelings, while valid, are not facts. Our emotions are shaped by stress, sleep, hunger, trauma, hormones, and environment. And yet, they often wear the mask of truth. When we don't slow down and question them, we may act on impulse that doesn't serve us. Even more subtly, we may be influenced by social intuition, unconscious judgments we make based on cues from others. Think about trends, peer pressure, or groupthink. Our brains are wired to sync with those around us. Sometimes, we intuitively agree with the loudest voice in the room, not because it's right, but because it feels safer to belong. That internal, "this must be true" signal is really just our ancient tribal brain trying to avoid social rejection. Then there's the tricky business of emotional residue, when leftover feelings from a previous situation color your judgment in a new one. You might have a bad feeling about a new job, not because of anything wrong with the job, but because it subconsciously reminds you of a previous experience where things went badly. Your gut reacts not to the present moment, but to old echoes. And unless you're aware of that, the intuition feels real, even though it's misplaced. None of this is to say we shouldn't trust our instincts. Quite the opposite. But we should be aware that our inner radar can be jammed by noise. Our job is not to silence intuition, but to tune it, to get better at asking, where is this feeling coming from? That simple act of reflection brings the unconscious into the light. And once it's visible, we can work with it more wisely. Point one powerful way to manage flawed intuition is to combine it with critical thinking. Instead of just going with your gut, pause and run a quick mental check. Ask yourself, is this fear or fact, emotion or evidence? What's influencing me right now? You don't need to dismiss your gut, but you can choose not to let it make every decision alone. Think of intuition like a co-pilot. Useful, experienced, but still needing your hands on the wheel. And sometimes, it helps to bring others into the loop. When you feel something strongly, good or bad, it can be helpful to talk it out. Ask a trusted friend what they see. Their perspective might help uncover a bias or blind spot you couldn't see on your own. In this way, community becomes a mirror, helping us see ourselves and our instincts more clearly. It's also important to reflect on our personal emotional patterns. Some people are more anxiety-prone, always expecting something to go wrong. Others are overly optimistic, assuming everything will work out. Both temperaments color intuition. If you know your emotional baseline, you can better interpret what your gut is really saying. Is this my intuition? Or is this just me being me? As we grow, so should our instincts. Our intuition is not a static force, it's alive. It learns, evolves, deepens. And like any tool, it sharpens with use, reflection, and humility. We will always get things wrong sometimes. But with awareness, we can reduce the cost of those mistakes and increase the power of our insights. From now onward, we'll look even deeper into the unseen workings of the mind. Specifically, how much of our intuitive processing happens without us ever realizing it. The subconscious brain is always watching, always absorbing, and often, always one step ahead. Even when you're not paying attention, your brain is. Right now, as you listen, your mind is doing far more than you realize. It's filtering sounds, adjusting your breathing, checking your balance, keeping track of your body temperature, and monitoring your surroundings. You don't think about these things, but your brain does. This is the realm of the subconscious, the silent observer that never sleeps, never stops, and never truly shuts off. The subconscious brain is like the backstage crew of a grand theater performance. You only see the spotlight on stage. But behind the curtains, hundreds of tiny actions, judgments, and corrections are happening every second. It's here that intuition lives most comfortably, quiet, fast, and invisible. Psychologists estimate that over 90% of the brain's activity is subconscious. Most of what you think, feel, and decide bubbles up from this hidden realm before you're even aware of it. Your conscious brain, the part you associate with you, is just the tip of the iceberg. And beneath it lies a vast reservoir of associations, instincts, memories, habits, and feelings, all influencing you without asking for permission. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt uneasy, even though nothing seemed wrong? Or met someone and felt like you knew them already? These are moments when your subconscious is firing. It may have picked up on subtle cues, body language, facial tension, even smells or sounds that triggered a familiar pattern. The conscious mind can't name it, but the subconscious already knows. It whispers a warning or a welcome. Point one. Famous example comes from split brain research, where scientists studied patients whose two brain hemispheres had been surgically separated. In these patients, the left brain, responsible for language, would make up elaborate explanations for decisions that were actually made by the right brain silently. The takeaway? The conscious mind often rationalizes decisions after they've been made, rather than making them in real time. We act, then we explain. We feel, then we justify. This is the root of intuition. Decisions made beneath awareness, delivered to consciousness as a feeling or a knowing. It's why we can have instant reactions to art, music, or people. The subconscious has already done the math. It doesn't show you the equation. It just gives you the answer. But the subconscious isn't just reactive. It's also where habits live. When you drive home without thinking, when you type without looking, when you brush your teeth on autopilot, that's your subconscious in control. It learns through repetition, stores the routine, and lets your conscious mind rest. This same system helps us navigate emotional and social situations too. We subconsciously know when someone is bored or when a conversation is about to turn. These aren't guesses. They're patterns our brain has seen thousands of times before, dreams, also come from this shadowy domain. In sleep, the subconscious continues its work, rearranging memories, solving problems, processing fears. Many people have found creative inspiration through dreams. Paul McCartney reportedly dreamt the melody for Yesterday. Chemist August Kekulé dreamt of a snake biting its own tail and realized the ring structure of benzene. The subconscious doesn't stop working when you do. It whispers in dreams, nudges through intuition, and stores the wisdom of every lived moment. In fact, there's growing evidence that the subconscious can detect patterns our conscious mind misses. A famous study showed that people could sense the winner of a card game long before they could explain why. Their palms began to sweat when they touched risky decks, well before they knew those decks were stacked. Their subconscious figured it out first. This quiet processor is also shaped by culture and personal history. If you grew up in a chaotic home, your subconscious may be tuned to tension, always scanning for danger. If you were raised with kindness and safety, it might assume trust. These early imprints don't disappear. They live deep in the fabric of your inner world, quietly coloring your intuition in every interaction. So, should we always trust our subconscious? Not blindly. Like any system, it reflects what it has learned. It can be powerful, but also biased. The subconscious may react to outdated fears or inherited judgments. The key is not to shut it down, but to listen and then reflect. Notice your inner signals, then ask why they're firing. With curiosity, not criticism. One way to access the subconscious more directly is through stillness. Practices like meditation, breathwork, or quiet journaling give the conscious mind a break. In that silence, deeper thoughts rise to the surface. Patterns reveal themselves. The noise of the world fades, and the quiet voice inside becomes easier to hear. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. Your brain is always watching, even when you are not. It records your life moment by moment, filtering through sensation and memory, preparing reactions in advance. Intuition is not magic. It's this lifelong dance between conscious choice and subconscious wisdom. As we move forward, we'll explore how our bodies, the vessels that hold all this, also play a role in shaping intuition. The next part of our journey will take us deeper into the body itself, the heartbeat, the breath, the posture, all subtle signals that feed our understanding of the world before we ever say a word. It's strange, isn't it? How a racing heart can make us feel anxious, or how tightening in the chest arrives before we even know we're sad. Sometimes, our bodies seem to know what we're feeling before our minds catch up. Intuition isn't just a mental phenomenon. It's deeply rooted in the body. The way you breathe, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the tension in your shoulders, or the softness in your posture. All of these are messages, signals, clues. Your body is constantly gathering, processing, and delivering information about the world and your place within it. This silent communication between the body and brain is what we call interoception, your internal sense of your own physical state. Think of it like an internal radar, quietly monitoring things like your heartbeat, your hunger, your breath, your temperature. It's how you just know you're nervous before a presentation or feel something is off without any visible danger. What makes this even more fascinating is how interoception shapes emotional intelligence. The more in tune we are with our bodies' signals, the better we become at recognizing emotions in ourselves and in others. A subtle flutter in your chest might not just be random. It could be the first sign of anticipation, fear, or joy. If you've ever had that sense that someone around you is upset, even when they're smiling, that's often your body picking up cues your conscious mind hasn't fully processed. Science has shown that people with a stronger awareness of their internal states tend to be more empathetic, emotionally balanced, and socially connected. It's not about being dramatic or overly sensitive. It's about listening to the whispers of your physiology and learning what those whispers mean. Let's slow this down with a simple example. Imagine walking into a room full of people. You don't know anyone. As you take a few steps in, your shoulders tighten just a little and your breath shortens. Maybe your stomach churns ever so slightly. These are signals, not just of nervousness, but of how your body is reading the room, scanning for eye contact, posture, energy, and tone. You might not realize it, but your body is already sending data up to the brain. Is this space safe? Are these people friendly? Should we open up or hold back? That's the power of bottom-up processing. The idea that information flows from body to brain, not just the other way around. Your gut feelings are often built on these small, physical shifts. That tightening, chest, the tingling neck, the heavy stomach, they're not just random. They're part of the language your body uses to talk to you. What's beautiful is that you can train this awareness. Through practices like mindful breathing, yoga, tai chi, or even a slow walk in nature, you begin to sharpen the signal. You start to notice how your body changes in different emotional states. You begin to link posture with mood, breath with stress, stillness with peace. A fascinating study at Stanford found that people who learned to track their heartbeat without touching their chest were not only better at managing stress, but also more skilled at understanding others' emotions. Their emotional intelligence improved, not by memorizing facial expressions or communication tricks, but by learning to listen inward. There's also the idea of somatic memory, the notion that the body remembers experiences, even when the mind forgets. Trauma, for example, often lives in the body long after it fades from conscious memory. A certain smell, sound, or movement can trigger a flood of emotion. Your brain might not know why, but your body does. It's held that experience in its tissues, waiting for a moment when it feels safe enough to release it. This is why developing emotional intelligence through the body is so transformative. You don't have to think your way through every feeling. You can feel your way through it instead. You can allow your body to tell you what's happening and then respond with care. This form of intelligence doesn't shout. It whispers you. Feel it in the steadying of your breath when you see someone you love, the loosening in your shoulders when you realize you're safe, the slight lift in your chest when you're inspired. These are moments of embodiment, when your body and mind are in quiet sync. Yet there's also a social dimension to this. Mirror neurons, a fascinating feature of our brains, help us feel what others are feeling. When someone around us is sad, we might feel a heaviness in our own chest. When they laugh, we find ourselves smiling. It's not mimicry. It's empathy woven into our nervous system. And it's the body that often delivers the first sign of this resonance. Oh, how does this tie back to intuition? When we are emotionally intelligent, when we are attuned to our internal signals, we develop a stronger foundation for gut-level decision-making. We're better at recognizing emotional patterns, both in ourselves and others. We don't just sense when something is off. We have the language to describe it, the calm to face it, and the clarity to act on it. Intuition, in this way, isn't separate from the body. It lives in the body. It lives in the way your hands get cold when you're afraid, the way your throat closes when you feel unspoken truth, the way your gut tightens before you say yes, or loosens with relief when you say no. These aren't flaws in your biology. They're part of its design. They're your compass, and the more you listen, the more accurate your inner compass becomes. Tonight, as you lay still and drift further into thought, take a moment to feel your body, not just with your hands, but with your attention. Notice your breath. Feel your heartbeat. Observe how your muscles soften. There's wisdom in that stillness. And maybe, just maybe, it's trying to tell you something. Now, we'll explore when this intuition, this gut wisdom, actually outperforms logic, and when it doesn't, because intuition, powerful as it is, still needs a guide. And sometimes, that guide is the steady light of reason. There are moments in life when something inside us responds before our thoughts have a chance to catch up. No deliberation, no lists, just a knowing, a push or pull, a feeling in the chest or gut that says yes or no, and says it with conviction. Sometimes, these decisions are life-saving. Other times, they seem reckless in hindsight. But the mystery remains. Why do our instincts sometimes steer us right, and other times lead us into confusion? This is the fascinating tension between two powerful mental systems, instinct and analysis. One is fast, emotional, and unconscious. The other is slow, logical, and deliberate. Understanding when to lean on one and when to turn to the other can shape how we navigate choices, relationships, and even our sense of identity. Let's begin with the nature of instinct. Intuition, or gut feeling, is not random. It's deeply rooted in our evolutionary past. Long before language or civilization, our ancestors had to rely on immediate judgments for survival. Is that rustling in the bushes dangerous? Can this stranger be trusted? These decisions couldn't wait for complex reasoning. The body had to decide in an instant. And so the brain learned to read subtle patterns, shadows, sounds, expressions, shifts in energy, and respond with speed. This pattern matching ability still exists in us today. And when we move through familiar territory, especially in areas we've experienced deeply, our instincts can be startlingly accurate. A seasoned firefighter may feel an urge to leave a building seconds before a collapse. A nurse may notice something off in a patient long before tests confirm it. These aren't guesses. They are built on years of accumulated patterns stored in the subconscious mind. In those moments, intuition acts like a shortcut to knowledge, a quiet whisper of recognition. But intuition isn't always right. In fact, it can be profoundly wrong, especially when it's driven not by experience, but by bias, fear, or emotional interference. Imagine meeting someone who reminds you of a past betrayal. Your gut says not to trust them. But is that intuition or a shadow from your history? Or think about the gut feeling that pushes you toward a decision you want to be true, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. In such cases, what feels like clarity might actually be a disguise for emotional bias. This is where analysis enters, the part of the mind that slows things down, asks questions, weighs evidence, and looks at the big picture. It's not built for speed, but for depth. It doesn't whisper, it reasons. And when used wisely, it can protect us from impulse, from jumping to conclusions, from mistaking feeling for fact. Yet analysis has its own pitfalls. Have you ever sat at a restaurant, frozen over a menu, unable to choose? Or stayed up late debating a simple decision, going in circles? Overthinking, too, can paralyze us. It can smother our inner voice and create a fog of doubt. We second-guess. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We spiral. The real challenge isn't picking one system over the other. It's knowing how to balance the two. When do we trust the quiet pull of instinct? And when do we pause and let reason guide us? One helpful way to navigate this is by considering the situation itself. In environments where we have deep experience, intuition often shines. A chef tasting a sauce knows instantly what's missing. A teacher senses when a student needs attention. In these domains, the subconscious has been trained through years of repetition. The gut, here, is informed. Intuition also thrives in moments where time is scarce. When we don't have the luxury to analyze, when a child runs into the street, or a split-second decision is required, instinct may be our most trusted tool. It's not always perfect, but it's built to act. And on the other hand, when the stakes are high and time allows, reason becomes essential. Choosing a career path, ending a relationship, making a major financial move. These are not choices to rush. They require us to slow down, reflect, and see past our emotional landscape. And then there are moments when both systems can work together. Have you ever faced a decision, felt a gut response, and then taken the time to explore why you felt that way? That dialogue between feeling and thought is powerful. It allows us to ask, is my gut reacting to the present, or to something unresolved from the past? Is this discomfort a warning, or just unfamiliarity? There's a beautiful metaphor to describe this relationship. Intuition is like the wind, and reason is the rudder. The wind can push you forward, give you momentum, help you act. But without the rudder, you can drift in the wrong direction. And without the wind, you go nowhere at all. Together, they create navigation. Some people fear their intuition because it has betrayed them in the past. Others ignore their analytical mind because they don't trust themselves to think clearly. But the truth is, both systems can be honed. You can train your intuition to become more reliable, and you can calm your analytical mind so that it serves rather than overwhelms you. Point one quiet practice is to pause before reacting. Feel the response in your body, your breath, your chest, your stomach. Where's the tension? Where's the ease? Then, ask your mind to speak. What are the facts? What might you be missing? This inner conversation can shift the entire landscape of a choice. And when it feels too cloudy, too charged, step away. Go for a walk. Sleep on it. The brain often processes decisions beneath our awareness during rest. That's not laziness. That's integration. That's the dance between conscious and unconscious wisdom. In the end, you don't have to silence your instinct or overrule your mind. You are not a war between logic and feeling. You are the space in which both can meet, converse, and find common ground. As we move forward in this journey, we'll explore how to sharpen that instinct, how to make it wiser, not just faster. Because intuition isn't fixed. It grows. It learns. It evolves with us. Now, let's see how to train it. Consciously, gently, and with care. If intuition is a skill we all carry, then it's also a skill we can shape. Like learning to play a quiet instrument or noticing the rhythm of your breath. Training your intuition is less about loud effort and more about gentle awareness. It's not about forcing answers to come faster, but learning how to listen better to yourself, your surroundings, and to the subtle cues that often pass unnoticed. That we often imagine intuition as something mysterious or magical. And while it can feel that way, much of what we call a gut feeling is actually our brain working behind the scenes, processing patterns far faster than our conscious mind can keep up with. So the question becomes, how do we feed it better patterns? How do we teach the brain to notice what truly matters and ignore the noise? The first step is exposure, experience in a domain. Just like a chess master learns to intuitively read a board, or a musician senses when a note is off, we develop intuition in areas where we practice, reflect, and stay present. That presence matters. Rushing through life without awareness feeds the brain's shallow data. But slowing down, observing closely, paying attention to how people react, how situations unfold, that creates a deeper mental archive. It gives your intuition something real to work with. Mindfulness, then, becomes a powerful tool in this training. By simply paying attention, without judgment, to your thoughts, feelings, and body signals, you begin to sharpen your internal radar. You might start to notice that your gut tightens around certain choices, or that your breath slows when something feels right. These are small signs, but they build a language between your body and your awareness. Journaling can help too. Writing about your intuitive moments, when they showed up, what they felt like, and how things turned out, helps you recognize your own patterns. Over time, you may find that certain sensations tend to accompany accurate gut instincts, while others tend to come with emotional bias or fear. You're not just recording thoughts, you're mapping your inner compass. Equally important is learning from the times intuition leads you astray. Not with shame, but with curiosity. Why did that gut feeling point in the wrong direction? Was it clouded by desire, by stress, by a past experience that colored your view? Every misstep becomes a teacher. It sharpens your understanding of when to trust yourself and when to pause. Another practice is something psychologists call thin slicing, making fast decisions based on minimal but meaningful information. Studies show that people trained in this skill can often make remarkably accurate judgments in their field with only a glance or brief encounter. But this only works when the person has deep experience and when they've learned to filter out noise. You can begin practicing this by challenging yourself with small, low-risk decisions. What to say in a conversation, what route to take on a walk, and then reflecting on how your choice felt versus how it played out. Over time, your accuracy improves. Rest and downtime also play an underrated role in building intuition. It's during moments of stillness, sleep, daydreaming, or simply doing nothing that the brain connects dots beneath the surface. Insights often emerge not when we chase them, but when we allow space for them to arrive. That's why stepping away from a decision can feel so clarifying. It's not avoidance. It's integration. Another layer to developing intuition is trust. If you constantly doubt your inner voice, it becomes harder to hear. But trusting doesn't mean assuming you're always right. It means being willing to listen, to create room for that voice, even when it's quiet, even when it's inconvenient. The more you do this, the stronger that connection becomes. That it's also helpful to practice receiving intuitive signals from the body. The stomach, chest, throat, shoulders, each reacts differently to situations. When something feels off, you may feel a heaviness or tightness. When something aligns, you may feel ease, lightness, or a subtle warmth. Begin to pay attention to these cues. Over time, you'll learn how your body speaks to you and what its signals tend to mean. Training intuition doesn't mean replacing logic. It means inviting your whole self into the decision-making process. It's a blend, a conversation. Sometimes your gut will lead and your mind will follow. Other times, Your mind will need to slow things down so your gut can catch up. In a world full of noise, pressure, and endless options, cultivating this inner sense becomes a form of calm strength. It's not about knowing everything. It's about feeling grounded in the unknown, about being able to stand at the edge of a decision and trust that even without all the facts, you can move forward with awareness and perhaps, at its best, intuition. Isn't just about making faster or smarter choices. It's about feeling more connected to yourself, to others, to the quiet threads of meaning that run beneath the surface of your life, that we all carry this quiet wisdom. It's in our bodies. It's in our history. It's in the way we pause, sense, and choose. And with patience, it becomes clearer. Now that we've explored how intuition can be shaped and sharpened, let's turn to something fascinating, how it differs across the world. Because intuition doesn't speak just one language. It's influenced by the cultures we grow up in, the values we're taught, and the ways we're allowed to trust ourselves. Let's explore that next. While intuition often feels deeply personal, almost like an inner whisper that belongs only to us, it is also shaped by the world we grow up in. Just as language, values, and customs vary across cultures, so does the way people interpret and trust their gut feelings. In many ways, intuition is not just a private sensation. It's a cultural expression. In the West, especially in the United States and much of Europe, intuition is often seen with a hint of skepticism. These cultures tend to emphasize rational thinking, data, and evidence. From a young age, people are taught to think it through, to explain their choices, to make decisions that can be justified logically. Intuition, in this context, is sometimes relegated to the realm of emotion or guesswork, something to be double-checked or even doubted. But that's not the case everywhere. In many Eastern cultures, particularly in places like Japan, Korea, and parts of India, intuition is regarded with more reverence. It's not seen as the opposite of logic, but as something that complements it. A decision guided by a sense of what is right, even if it can't be fully explained, may be trusted, respected, and followed without the need for deep justification. In these societies, harmony, balance, and the subtle flow of energy are often valued more than raw analysis. A quiet hunch might be taken just as seriously as a spreadsheet. In indigenous cultures across the world, from the Maori of New Zealand to Native American tribes, intuition is often considered a sacred link to ancestors, nature, and spirit. Knowledge doesn't only come from books or teachers. It also comes from dreams, from animal behavior, from silence. These cultures often teach that listening deeply to the land, to the body, to one's inner knowing is just as important as speaking or studying. The boundary between the intuitive and the spiritual is thinner here, and the result is often a greater openness to wisdom that comes without explanation. In contrast, some highly industrialized cultures may prize efficiency and quick returns so heavily that intuitive knowledge gets drowned out. In high-pressure environments, such as corporate finance or tech startups, speed and decisiveness are valued, but only when they appear rational. If a person says, "I just feel this is the right path," without a clear metric or model, they may be met with resistance, even if that feeling turns out to be accurate later on. Interestingly, studies have found that even brain activity related to decision-making changes depending on cultural background. For example, Western participants might show more activity in areas associated with independent reasoning, while Eastern participants show heightened connectivity in regions related to social context and emotional resonance. This suggests that even our neural responses are shaped by the environment we grow up in. The language we speak also plays a role. In English, we have phrases like gut feeling, follow your heart, or something doesn't feel right. But in other languages, the metaphors change. In Japanese, the word haragiai refers to intuitive understanding that comes from the belly. In Zulu, the phrase ukuzwan gamkando means to feel with the mind. The very way intuition is spoken about reflects how a culture experiences it, whether it's located in the heart, the gut, or the whole body. This doesn't mean one way is better than another, but it does mean that our capacity for intuition is deeply intertwined with the stories we're told, the norms we absorb, and the behaviors we observe growing up. If a child is encouraged to speak up when something feels off, they may become more sensitive to those signals later in life. If they're taught to dismiss those feelings as irrational, they may learn to silence that inner voice, theirs. Also, a gendered aspect to this. In some societies, women are encouraged to be more emotionally attuned and intuitive, while men are pushed toward logic and detachment. This can skew how intuition is perceived and trusted. And yet, intuition doesn't favor any gender. It's simply another way the brain processes information, available to everyone who listens. What we begin to realize is that intuition is not one size fits all. It's not a universal instinct that always speaks the same language. It is filtered through tradition, belief, education, and community. Two people from opposite sides of the world might feel the same sensation, a tug in the gut, a stillness in the chest, but interpret it in completely different ways. And that's part of what makes intuition so beautiful. It's both deeply human and endlessly diverse. It reflects not just who we are as individuals, but who we are as members of cultures, families, and shared histories. By becoming aware of these differences, we don't just sharpen our own inner voice. We also learn to appreciate the many ways others experience theirs. As you continue to explore and trust your own intuition, consider the invisible roots beneath it, the stories you've heard, the lessons you've inherited, the spaces where your culture has made room for quiet knowing, and where it may have pushed it aside. And now, as we prepare to gently close this journey, let's come back to the softest idea of all, the simple act of listening. Not to the noise outside, not even to the thoughts rushing through your head, but to the quiet sense within you. Let's move into that final space together. We've explored the biology, the patterns, the cultures, and the science behind intuition. But now, in this final chapter, we return to something more subtle, more personal, something that lives beneath all the facts and theories, the quiet art of listening to your own body. Because beneath the signals and systems, beneath your gut microbiome and your neural pathways, there is a simple, profound truth. Your body is always speaking to you, not in loud declarations, not in charts or graphs, but in gentle nudges, in the rise of your heart rate when something's not right, in the quiet ease you feel when something is, in the tension across your shoulders when you're being pulled in too many directions, and in the calm stillness when everything aligns. Learning to listen isn't about achieving perfect awareness or decoding every signal. It's about softening, about allowing space. It's about slowing down just enough to notice the little shifts, the way your breath catches in a moment of doubt, or how it deepens when you feel safe. So often, we rush through our days tuned outward, to screens, to tasks, to conversations, to the ticking clock. Intuition begins not with knowing, but with noticing. It begins in silence, in the pause before the answer, in the space between thoughts. You don't need special training to do this. You don't need a lab coat or meditation retreat. You only need a moment of attention. Sit with yourself. Feel where your weight rests. Notice if your jaw is tight, if your stomach feels light or heavy. These small things matter. They are not noise. They are messages, subtle, honest, and yours. Listening to your body doesn't mean ignoring your thoughts or logic. It means adding another voice to the conversation. It means inviting the wisdom that exists below language, the part of you that has always known, even before your mind caught up. Because your body remembers. It remembers what felt right, what felt wrong, even when you've forgotten the details. It stores that memory not as stories, but as sensation, as intuition, and this quiet listening. It's not just a tool for decision-making. It's a form of self-care, a way to reconnect when you feel lost, a compass when life grows loud, a gentle hand reaching out in the dark to say, I'm still here. I'm still listening. This doesn't mean your intuition will always be correct. Sometimes, fear or past wounds disguise themselves as instinct. That's okay. That's part of being human. The goal isn't perfection, it's presence. It's learning to tell the difference between a warning and a wound, between the pull of growth and the tug of old fear. And with time, the more you listen, the more you'll hear. The more you trust, the more clearly it speaks. Not in dramatic signs or thunderclaps, but in the smallest shifts. The gut feeling, before a conversation. The breath that settles when you make the right choice. The feeling of coming home to yourself. Tonight. As this quiet journey ends, don't reach for answers. Don't rush for solutions. Let the questions linger. Let your thoughts float. Let your body soften into stillness. You've traveled far, not through cities or stars, but inward, into the deep and quiet heart of what it means to feel. Let that feeling guide you, not just in sleep, but in waking life. Let it remind you that the most powerful compass you have is not outside you, but within. It's your breath, your body, your quiet attention, and in that quiet, something beautiful happens. The noise fades, the doubts soften, and all that remains is this soft, persistent whisper that says, "You already know. So breathe with me now." Slow, gentle, deep. Let this be the beginning of listening. Not just tonight, but always. Good night, curious mind, and thank you for spending this time with me.